we're gonna, I think we're gonna back up just slightly, or we may not have gotten that far. I think we're backing up just a bit. To the end of Act 2, Scene 2. Well, not quite the end, but almost the end. Page 1199 in the 11th edition. This is when, or where, Lysander and Hermia decide to stop for the evening, and they're going to go to sleep. Okay. Beginning line 45. Hermia tells Lysander, "Find you out of bed, for I upon this bank will rest my head." Notice, by the way, they're speaking in verse, rhyming verse. Okay. I can't remember if it's this class or my other class. Wednesday I said something about all the fairies speak in rhyming verse in the wood. It's not correct because Titania and Oberon don't rhyme, but here Lysander and Hermia do speak in rhyme. So there's just a lot of rhyme in this play. So Hermia, "For upon this bank will rest my head." Lysander, "One turf shall serve as pillow for us both. One heart, one bed, two bosoms, and one troth." Okay. So he says, one bank of grass will serve for our pillow. Why? We have one heart, okay, so one bed, two bosoms, two bodies, okay, and one troth. What's his point? Why did they run off to the wood?
To get married.
To get married. He's essentially saying, we are as good as married already. Why? Because we've already, to use old-fashioned language, plighted our troth to one another. They've gotten engaged, so to speak. Okay? So, one heart, our hearts are already joined. He says, one bed, one spot of land, two bosoms, our bodies are separate. They've not had sex, in other words. Okay? And one troth, and you've got a gloss down there at the bottom, one faith or one troth plight. What is the purpose of a footnote in a textbook like this? What's it supposed to do? Clarify? Make it more understandable? Have any of you ever heard this word or seen it? I've been teaching over 30 years. I've never seen this one word phrase, troth plight. To plight one's troth, yes, but not this. Does that make it clearer? I don't think so, but that's just me. I just want to point out, sometimes footnotes are idiotic. I don't get it. Anyways, Hermia, "Nay, good Lysander, for my sake, my dear, lie further off yet, do not lie so near." Now, for my sake can have two different meanings. For the good of me, all right, for my protection, you sleep over there. That's one meaning. What's another possible meaning? What might she kind of subtly, subconsciously be telling Lysander? Why else might she tell him, "No, you should stay over there"? The first meaning implies what about Lysander? He might get a little handsy, if he's lying right next to her. The second meaning is, for my sake, kind of, I can't control myself. You stay over there. The second meaning might be where she's saying, I don't know that I have the self-control to not do anything. They've not married yet. Within the context of the play, you got to be married before sex, okay? So, he says, "Oh, take the sense, sweet, of my innocence." Take the sense of my innocence. Look at the last word first. What is he suggesting about his saying we should lie down together on one plot of grass, so to speak? Does he mean anything by that? Does he want to have sex?
Probably.
Okay, probably wants to. Is he saying, let's lie down and have sex? No. He's saying, what I'm saying is innocent. That's why he says, take the sense, sweet, of my innocence. He means, look at the heart of what I'm saying. Right? I'm not going to try anything. He goes on. Love takes the meaning in love's conference. And you've got a footnote down there. When lovers confer, love teaches each lover to interpret the other's meaning lovingly. Does that clarify it? Maybe a little bit. I think the last word is wrong, though. I think the last word should be, love teaches each lover to interpret the other's meaning innocently. Okay? So that when he says something, she does what? She gives him the benefit of the doubt. She takes the meaning of the words at their seemingly face value, and vice versa. So he says, love takes the meaning, the real kind of inside meaning in love's conference. What's he suggesting? You're ascribing kind of something to me that I'm not suggesting. I mean, my heart unto yours is knit. We're sewn together. We are bound together already, even though they've not said the words. So that but one heart we can make of it. Okay? Two bosoms, interchained, tied. That's what interchained means. Chained together, the proverbial ball and chain imagery. Two bosoms interchained with an oath. What's the oath? He's, to use more modern terminology, he's asked her to marry him. She's agreed. That's why they ran off to the woods. That's the oath. Okay? So then, two bosoms and a single troth. That is, a single pledge of faith. I pledge faith to you. You pledge faith to me. It's a single pledge. Then, or therefore, if you want, by your side, no bedroom me deny. Notice he doesn't say, by your side, no bed me deny. Because if he left out the word room, it could imply a single bed. But it means space, like for a bed. Like, here's your bed, here's my bed, right next to you. For lying so, Hermia, lying so, reclining, lying down next to you, I do not lie. Meaning, I'm not telling you an untruth. I'm not just saying this so that I can lie down next to you and then get in your pants, in other words. Notice her response. Lysander riddles very prettily. In other words, oh, you're really good with language. Is what he has said a riddle? Not classically speaking, not a real riddle, but it is kind of riddling. Is he speaking extremely clearly? Don't worry, I'm not going to touch you. Just, back to back, body heat will keep us a little warmer. Now much beshrew my manners and my pride, if Hermia meant to say Lysander lied. Much beshrew, that is, well, look at your footnote. Curse, but mildly meant. Okay, blame me for what? Having implied that you were lying. It's Shakespeare's way of having Hermia say, I'm sorry. I did not mean to imply you were lying. I did not mean to imply that you had other motivations. But, gentle friend, for love and courtesy lie further off in human modesty. Why does she call him gentle friend? What's meant by the word gentle? Does that just mean nice, kind, friendly? No. Louder? Soft? I mean, that's kind of what it often means, but that's not what it means in this context. In this context, it means noble, honorable, virtuous. It goes back to the old idea of what should be a gentleman. Back in the Middle Ages, a gentleman was somebody of high birth, because it was thought, idea was, people of high birth are well-bred, they're noble, they're honorable, they're virtuous. Chaucer writes an entire story in the Canterbury Tales about how and why that notion is false. That just because you're high-born, it means you are all of these things. In fact, he has someone who appears to be very low-born, very ignoble, dishonorable, unvirtuous, who shows to another character how these character traits have nothing to do with birth. They have everything to do with behavior. Okay? So she's saying, for noble, honorable, virtuous friend, because of love, his expressed love for her, and courtesy. That's another idea that goes back to the Middle Ages. The behavior of the court, ultimately, it's honorable behavior. Do what? Lie further off in human modesty. And you've got a gloss down at the bottom. It says maybe, that's suggesting humane modesty. So what's modesty? Chasteness. Proper kind of sexual relationships. And again, within the world of the play, it's not premarital sex. It's not extramarital sex. Sex occurs within marriage, period. Okay? And within the world of Shakespeare's day, even though, there were people left and right like bunnies, having sex inside, outside marriage, etc. So, such separation as may well be said becomes a virtuous bachelor and a maid. As may well be said, this virtuous behavior, you sleep over here, I'll sleep over here, becomes a virtuous bachelor, and the virtuous applies to maid too, and a virtuous maid. Therefore, sleep over there. Again, I think part of why she's saying that is not just because of Lysander. I think it's also she doesn't trust herself. And good night, sweet friend. Thy love ne'er alter till thy sweet life end. What do you often hear, like on TV and movies and stuff, in a wedding ceremony? Till death do us part. I'm going to post. Let me write it down. Yes, I am. Yes, I did. I'm going to post on D12, just for your information, actually 3 sonnets of Shakespeare. Sonnet 116 is often called the love sonnet. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments, for love is not love when it alters, when it alteration finds, are the first 4 lines, okay? Which talks about this idea of, loving until the edge of doom, etc. And in these other 2 I'll talk about very, very briefly in just a moment. So, thy love ne'er alter, don't change it. Until what? Until you die. How's it going to change then? Be no more, or it becomes something more. Yes. Page number 1200 in the 11th edition. 10th edition, it's really close to the end, so probably. You got it? Okay. Lysander, amen, amen to that fair prayer. And then in life, when I end loyalty, when I am no longer loyal to you, what has he just said? Yeah, I'll die. Or I'll kill myself. It's one of those two. Here's my bed, sleep give thee all his rest. Okay? Puck comes in, which we talked about the other day. Athenian youth, Athenian maid, Oberon said, find the Athenian youth and the Athenian maid, put the love juice on his eyes, so that he wakes up, sees her, falls in love. So he does. Demetrius and Helena come in, running and speaking loudly. Lysander wakes up after Demetrius leaves. 11:09. Helena sees Lysander and says, Lysander, if you live, good sir, awake. And run through fire I will for thy sweet sake. That is, I'll go to death and beyond for you. Transparent Helena. The gloss, radiant, able to be seen through, lacking in deceit. That is, what you see is what you get. Pure virtue. Nature shows art that through thy bosom makes me see thy heart. Where's Demetrius? And she says,
Where are you? You said 1109?
Sorry, I'm on page 1201.
Okay.
It was line 109, sorry.
Okay.
Now I'm on line 115, 114. Do not say so, Lysander, say not so. What though he love your Hermia? That is Demetrius. Lord, what though? Who cares? Yet Hermia still loves you. Then be content. Come on, you guys have it made. She's thinking, I'm screwed. I love him. He doesn't love me. Lysander, content with Hermia? No. Exclamation. I do repent the tedious minutes I with her have spent. What's tedious mean?
Difficult.
Louder?
Difficult.
Difficult? Tedious means time consuming. Okay? Let me rephrase that. Tedious means where you're doing something and it seems to take a whole lot of time and it shouldn't. What should be it's like when I used to do car repairs. Start something and what should take half an hour ends up taking 3 hours because you not only have to remove this, but then you have to remove that and that and that kind of thing. Okay? So what has he just said about the time spent with his beloved? It's like a minute was a day. Not Hermia, but Helena I love. Who will not change, and this is the first time we kind of get this idea, who will not change a raven for a dove? And what that is indicating is something about the appearance of the two characters. It doesn't mean Hermia is black. It means she's darker skinned than Helena. And Helena, because of how she's described, probably is a model of the Elizabethan notion of real beauty. And that notion, I don't know if I have one. That notion is like that white. Queen Elizabeth, portraits of Queen Elizabeth, all have her portrayed with a face with white powder on it. That was the notion of beauty. What kind of beauty is that? It's false, right? Nobody is that white. Pick the palest, whitest actor/actress you can. Kate Blanchett, Nicole Kidman, They're not that white. There's still a tinge of pink to them, okay? So all Hermia has to be is a little bit darker than that. Like somebody with a tan, okay? But she does have dark hair. So who will not change a raven for a dove? Because doves are white, okay? And I should add this, casting-wise, Hermia should be a little bit shorter because of some lines we're going to hear later. And Helena should be tall, somewhat lithe. Think swimsuit model. She ought to be a swimsuit model, okay? So, who will not change a raven for a dove? The will of man is by his reason swayed. And reason says you are the worthier maid. Yes?
So just to clarify, Lysander woke up and saw Helena, and that's why he's saying, oh, I dread the time I spent with Hermia.
Because what happened to Lysander?
Because he got that love potion
Puck put the love and idleness juice on his eyes. And the first thing he saw when he woke up was Helena. Why? Because she was like, Lysander, wake up. Who does she not see? Lysander points this out to us. He actually verbally tells us. She doesn't see Hermia when she leaves. Okay? So, the will of man is by his reason swayed, and reason says you are the worthier maid. What does that mean? Your gloss says for will, desire. All right? And Shakespeare, in this sonnet, so I'm going to post it, sonnet 135, puns on the word will. Because in Shakespeare's day, that word had at least 4 different meanings. Like volition. Okay? The ability to do something. I will X, Y, Z. Okay? It also meant sexual desire. It meant just plain desire also, but it also meant sexual desire, and it also meant sexual organs, male and or female. And in that sonnet 135, he uses just about every meaning you can to pun on it. What can it also be? Will Shakespeare. So he even capitalizes the word, punning on his name. Okay? So he says the will of man, that is his volition, his desire, his sexual desire, and his organs, sex organs, what? Is by his reason swayed. And this goes back to an ancient idea. I mean, this is at least as far back as the ancient Greeks. That one's passions, anger, hatred, love, lust, all those things, should be governed by one's reason. And it was thought, there's a reason the head is at the top of the body. It governs everything down beneath it. The head controls fingers. It controls the 5 senses. Or it should, if the head and the rest of the body are working in tandem. That's why he then says, in reason says, you are the worthier maid. Just looking at you. Reason says, kind of like within an Elizabethan understanding of beauty, you're the more beautiful person. Things growing are not ripe until their season. What? What does what he's talking about have to do with vegetables and fruits? Well, he's going to explain. So I, being young, till now ripe not to reason. I was like an unripe fruit before. My reason was unripe. But now my reason has ripened, and I see you are the better fruit. You are the more beautiful person. And touching now the point of human skill, reason becomes the marshal to my will and leads me to your eyes. So, reason, which should govern everything else in the body, he says, reason now marshals what? My will. So when he uses that word marshal, what does it mean? It's a military reference.
Gather.
Gather. When you marshal your troops, you get them into formation. So he's saying, my reason is marshaling my will, probably all four meanings of it, to do what? Leads me to your eyes, where I overlook love stories written in love's richest book. Reason leads me to look in your eyes. It was thought that the eyes reflect the soul. Not an ancient, well, it is an ancient idea. This idea is still around us today. Anybody know what president? No, it doesn't matter what president. A president, about 15, 20 years ago, said he looked into Putin's eyes and saw his soul. People today look into Putin's eyes and think they see nothing but an abyss, kind of a thing. He says, I look in your eyes and I see love's stories written in love's richest book. In other words, these are eyes you could get lost in. Love just exudes from them. Wherefore was I to this keen mockery born? What does that really mean? What the hell? Why are you saying this? When at your hands did I deserve this scorn? What does she think he's doing?
Making fun of her.
Making fun of her? Pulling a practical joke on her? Why? She loves Demetrius. Demetrius doesn't love her. He loved Hermia. Now he's pretending to love her. So we now have this. Everything's gone haywire. Does she deserve this scorn? I think you could maybe say a little bit. Should she be in the wood? No, she shouldn't. Why is she? Hermia and Lysander told her what they were planning on doing. They were running off to the wood for what purpose?
Marriage.
To get married. Okay? Why is Helena there? Who else did Helena tell?
Demetrius.
She told Demetrius, so that Demetrius would go off the wood, and then she could follow him. Why? Hey, if they can get married in the wood, this is an assumption on my part, I'll admit, maybe she thought, I could convince Demetrius. Maybe I could turn him to me, and we would get married in the wood. She says, is it not enough, young man, that I did never know nor never can? Notice that. No, nor, never. 3 negatives. Okay. Deserve a sweet look from Demetrius' eye, but you must flout my insufficient side? Demetrius won't even give me the time of day. She says, and you flout my what insufficiency? How is Helena insufficient? According to the standards of beauty, she's got it all. Except what? From her perspective. Demetrius won't even look at her. So for her, from her perspective, there's something wrong. It's like if you have anorexia. What happens if you have anorexia? What do you think? That you're fat when you're woefully underweight. So you keep, making yourself vomit what you eat. It's a mental illness, okay? Good troth, good faith, you do me wrong. Good sooth, good truth, you do in such disdainful manner me to woo. Okay? Perforce I must confess, I thought you Lord of more true gentleness. That's why I went and spent time on Hermia's use of that word to describe Lysander. Because Helena uses the same one, but she says, I thought you were a real gentleman. She's just said, you lack nobility, you lack honor, you lack virtue. Okay? Oh, that a lady of one man refused should of another therefore be abused. Whew. And she leaves. Lysander, she doesn't see Hermia. Sleep, Hermia, and never mayst thou come Lysander near. Don't ever come near me again. For as a surfeit, kind of like an impostor, of the sweetest things the deepest loathing to the stomach brings, or as the heresies, wrong religious beliefs, okay, that men do have are hated most of those they did deceive. That is, those who were once heretics hate the heresy more than those who never believed it. So, you, my surfeit and my heresy, you, the impostor to me, and the thing I once loved that I now see through and now realize is wrong, of all be hated, but the most of me. Why? All my powers address your love and might to honor Helen and be her knight. And he leaves. So we have on the stage Hermia. Who else is on the stage at this point?
Helena.
Nope. She left just a moment ago. All through this part.
Oh, Puck.
No, he's left. Close. Titania is asleep on the stage. Okay? She's been asleep since when? She's been there since Act 1, Scene 2, and Titania is asleep at page 1199, beginning line 30. So she's somewhere on the stage, just zonked out. All right? Oberon's put the juice on her eyes. Hermia leaves. Titania is still sleeping. Notice, the sleeping Titania remains. In come the rude mechanicals, the rustics. And they start to do the rehearsal for their play. Notice, once they start talking about the play, and Peter Quince tells Bottom he has to stab himself for love, what does Bottom assume will happen for the audience of the play? This is telling us how stupid Bottom is. They're really going to believe he's going to kill himself. They're really going to believe he is Pyramus, and that Flute is Thisbe. So he says, Peter Quince, you got to write a prologue. And the prologue needs to do what? Let the prologue, line 14, right? Yeah. Let the prologue, page 1203, line 14. Let the prologue seem to say, we will do no harm with our swords, and that Pyramus is not killed indeed. And for the more better assurance, tell them that I, Pyramus, am not Pyramus, but Bottom the Weaver. This will put them out of fear. Okay, I said it reveals Bottom's stupidity. What else does it do? Anybody know in theater kind of what doing this would be? It's breaking what's called the fourth wall. The fourth wall is the wall of kind of, let's pretend. So that when you walk into a theater, film, what do you supposedly kind of allow your mind to do while you're watching this? This is real. For an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. So Bottom wants to immediately say, everything you're going to see is not real. Just nobody really dies. This isn't real blood, etc. Okay? Bottom goes on and says, for example, Snout has to, when he comes out, make sure everybody knows I'm not a real lion. I'm not going to really harm Thisbe. Okay? The guy's really stupid, all right? And the actor playing Bottom be kind of plain looking. He shouldn't be gorgeous. He shouldn't be really attractive. Okay? It doesn't mean he has to be ugly. I've only seen one version of Midsummer Night's Dream where the guy playing bottom, forgive me, was just repulsive. I mean, he was like 22, 23, and I'm not kidding, probably weighed 450 pounds and was shorter than me. I mean, this guy was literally like this. And the young woman playing Titania was drop dead gorgeous. I mean, she could have been on a calendar. All right? Which is going to be important very soon. So, they start to act out their play, start to go over it. And bottom screws up lines, line 64. Bottom comes forth. Thisbe has stood forth. Bottom comes forward and says, as Pyramus, Thisbe, the flowers of odious savors sweet. Odious savors sweet. He screws up the word odors and makes it odious. And Peter Quince corrects him. How much of a difference is there between odious and odors? Well, if something is odious, it's kind of like it puts a rancid smell in your nose. It's not a literal smell. It is something hated, something you don't want to do. All right? Odors, so odious savors sweet. So sound-wise, it kind of implies something to do with smell. Savors sweet. What do you do if you savor something? Like a piece of food. Your mouth kind of lingers over it because of its tastiness, right? But savorful meat, as an example, is meat that has a kind of a punch to it, a kick to it. It's got spices and herbs. It's not sweet. It's not sugar-like, all right? So he's created, or he's used, a malapropism. He's used one word when he intends something else. Shakespeare did not have this word available. This word doesn't exist until sometime in the very late 17th century or mid 18th century, when another playwright writes a play and has a character in it named Mrs. Malaprop, because she's always saying the wrong things. She intends one thing, she says something else. Okay? That's what Bottom is doing. So Quince corrects him. Odors, odors. Odors, savors, sweet. Look at the line. The flowers of odors, savors, sweet. Okay, I'm going to show my very traditional morality and all that kind of stuff here. So work with my assumption. Ladies, you're getting ready to go out on a date with some guy, and the guy brings you flowers. How do you want those flowers to smell if they have a smell? I'm going to use that term intentionally. Do you want something that stinks? There's a flower, and I can't remember what it's called. Used to have them when we lived in Mississippi, and my sister's house in Oregon has them. It produces like this trumpet-like flower, and it's the most god-awful scent you can imagine. It's like a garbage can after food garbage has been dumped in a little bit of water and it sat out in the sun for a week and a half. I mean, you smell it and almost enough to make you hurl. It's that bad. That's what he just said. Odors, your flowers of odors, savors, sweet. Flowers shouldn't have odors. They have what? Scents. S-C-E-N-T-S, or aromas, maybe? If you're cooking something for dinner, do you want it to have an odor? No. You want it to have an aroma, something that draws you in. Shakespeare plays on that idea in his sonnet 130. That begins, my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Sting ripped it off for the title of an album and song. Okay? Where in that sonnet, he takes all the standard tropes of Elizabethan beauty and turns them on their heads. Okay? So the lover's hair isn't like golden, crinkly wire, wavy blonde hair. Instead, it's like black wires. All right? And he gives all these other images. Because what he's really saying in that sonnet is my lover's real. She's not this idealized view of feminine beauty. She's not this goddess out there. Meaning, she's not unreal. I really go to sleep with my lover, the speaker is saying. He actually describes her as a prostitute, which is interesting. Anyways, so Bottom goes off stage for a moment because that's what the play requires. He comes back in with Puck. He doesn't see Puck. So when you see the stage direction, page 1205, line 83 or so, enter Puck and Bottom as Pyramus with the ass head. Bottom isn't aware that Puck is there at all. Bottom goes off the stage, Puck ass heads him. He comes back on. He's got the body of a man. He has the hands of a man, the feet of a man, but the head of a donkey, a jackass. And it doesn't look like a mask. It's his head. Within the world of the play, is supposed to be like totally seamless. All right? Quint sees him, oh, monster so strange, and they all flee, run off the stage. Puck says some words, how he's going to chase them all around. Okay. Bottom is still there. Why do they run away? This is a knavery of them to make me afeard. He doesn't know. Snout comes on. Oh, Bottom, thou art changed. What do I see on thee? What do you see? You see an ass head of your own? A little bit of projecting going on. Snout leaves. Peter Quince comes on. Bliss thee, Bottom, bliss thee, thou art translated. What does he mean? That's another malapropism. Translated means move from here to there. Okay? He means transformed. Change from one thing into something else. I see their knavery. Peter Quince leaves again. This is to make an ass of me. Now, when Bottom says that, and when he says to Snout, you see an asset of your own, those are both examples of dramatic irony. He doesn't realize the truth of what he's saying. The audience does, because the audience sees body of a man with a jackass on top, head. So what's Bottom do? He tries to calm his nerves. And apparently for Bottom, that's singing. Does Bottom have a good voice? No. He should be like me singing. This isn't my real voice, but you get the idea. Oh, so cocks the black of you with orange tawny bill. That's what he should sound like. Okay? Why? Because of what Titania says. What angel wakes me from my flowery bed? You've heard the phrase, so-and-so has the voice of an angel? What's her name? Bluegrass singer. Does a lot of stuff with Robert Plant and then Yo-Yo Ma. Alison Krauss, man. Her voice is like crystal. Okay? That's what is meant. Does Bottom have the voice of an angel? Fallen angel, maybe, but not an angel, you know?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Not to backtrack, but what is the definition of malapropism? I've heard a couple, and like I've tried to simplify it, but I don't.
Misuse of a word.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty much using one word to mean something, but you're using the wrong word. It's using the wrong word for the context. That's about as good as I could off the top of my head. Wrong word in context. Okay? So, what angel wakes me from my flowery bed? He keeps singing. And she says, I pray thee, gentle mortal. There's that word, gentle again. Noble, virtuous, honorable. Sing again. Mine ear is much enamored of thy note. So is mine eye enthralled to thy shape. And thy fair virtues perforce doth move me on the first view to say, to swear I love thee. So why is her ear enamored of the note of his voice when the love and idleness wasn't put in his ear, in her ear, sorry? Because love and idleness has transformed her so that when she wakes up, all her senses will kind of revolve around the first thing she sees. In this case, bottom. So notice what she said. Mine ear is much enamored of thy note, my eye is enthralled to thy shape. Okay. Thy fair virtue's force perforce doth move me. Fair virtue's force. Your gloss, the power of your unblemished excellence. Yes and no. What's his fair virtue? Because that kind of sounds like it's talking about his physical form. It's not what it means. Virtue is the power inside, kind of to do good, to act rightly, etc. Okay? Thy fair virtue's force doth move me. Love poets of the time talked about the reason they fell in love, the reason the lovers in their poems fell in love with the beloved is because the beloved's virtue attracted them. It drew them because of the power of its strength, right? And so she says, on the first view to swear, I love thee. Bottom. Methinks, mistress, you should have little reason for that. Okay. Methinks. It seems to me that you should have little reason. What's the for that refer? The that is what's called a sentence complement. It refers back to the previous sentence. What's that? That her eye is enthralled to his shape, that her ear is enamored of his note, and his fair virtue's force moves her on first view to say, to swear, I love thee. He says, you have little reason for that. True or false? True. What reason? Reason, rationality, logic does she have to love bottom? None. Absolutely none. Because reason's not involved in her love for bottom, right? It's because she's had a love potion put in her eyes. Now look at what he says. And yet, to say the truth, reason and love keep little company together nowadays. The more the pity that some honest neighbors will not make them friends. Now, I could be entirely wrong. I could be entirely misreading Shakespeare. And I probably am. I'll just say that. I think that's one of the most profound lines in all of Shakespeare's plays. And here's why. He says, to say the truth, to speak truly, reason and love keep little company together nowadays. Now, the last word first. The nowadays imply they did at one point. They did it sometime in the past. They, reason and love, in the past, did what? They kept company together. What is meant by that? They worked together. They worked hand in hand. They worked in tandem. They were on parallel lines with each other. How many of you, or have you ever known someone, this isn't a, thing, you personally. Have you known someone that's fallen in love with somebody else that you've kind of looked at and gone, how did that happen? Like, those two people, they don't fit. Maybe he's not all that good looking and she's gorgeous. She's not all that good looking and he's gorgeous. I can give you an example, but I can't remember her name. And his name there it goes. Write it down quickly. do you spell his name? I don't remember. Something like Mnuchin. He served in Republican governments. He was management and budget, something like that for the Trump presidency. He looks like, not meaning to belittle anybody's, career choices. He looks like what you would think of when you hear the word accountant. Kind of a nerdy looking guy, glasses, thick glasses, real pasty white. His wife looks like she just walked out of, Glamour or Cosmo or Sports Illustrated. She's like 6 inches taller than him, just drop dead gorgeous, and
Is he rich?
yeah. Bingo, there you go, right? And I think she actually was
Yeah, I know.
a former model. I think she was like with the Tom Ford agency. I mean, big model, okay? But that's kind of what's being talked about there. Now, reason and love don't work hand in hand. The more the pity that some honest neighbors will not make them friends. What's he saying? Reason and love are neighbors. How so? Love is here, reason's here. They ought to be honest neighbors. They ought to get along. His point is, reason and love should point in the same direction. So that when you fall in love with someone, notice even the terminology we use. To fall in love implies what? You've lost your footing. We use the phrase head over heels. It's irrational. It doesn't make sense. Right? Bottom is saying love should make sense. It should be rational. And vice versa. Okay? He says, I can leak upon occasion, and your gloss tells you that means jest. Now, is Bottom saying that what he's just said is a jest? A lot of critics think it does. And a lot of critics take that line and then Titania's line to show that the way I just read Bottom's words is wrong. Thou art as wise as thou art beautiful. How beautiful is Bottom? At this point, he's got a freaking ass's head on. He's not beautiful at all. Thou art as wise as you are beautiful. Ergo, you're not wise. Okay? Is that necessarily, though, a rational statement on the part of Titania? No, because she's seeing through what? What lens is she seeing through? Love potion. Okay? Bottom says, not so neither. Double negative. Does that mean, yes, I am? No, it doesn't. So, he says, if I can only get out of this wood. No, you're not leaving this wood. What does she tell him? Thou shalt remain here whether thou wilt or no. Whether you want to leave or not, buddy, you're stuck. Why? What have I said about fairies and humans? They like to enslave us. She's making him her slave. What kind of slave? Her love slave. But she's a benevolent ruler, So all these fairies come in and they wait on him hand and foot. Okay? Oberon, last 2 minutes. Oberon enters. So, Titania and the fairies all leave. Oberon enters. And it says, I wonder if Titania be awake. I've said this to every one of my classes since this happened, so in the last 2 minutes you get it too. My wife and I first saw Midsummer Night's Dream together at the Globe in London. It was the time when, I mentioned she's at the center of the stage and like this. Okay? The guy playing Oberon is a Scotsman, so, her knees already turn weak, who's like Gerard Butler and Mel Gibson when he was young, and Chris Hemsworth, all wrapped into one, so drop dead gorgeous, and he speaks with this fantastic Scots accent. And we're both part Scots, and she just, So she's like this, and he comes down when he says this line. He kneels down, literally, no offense, like this far, looking at her face. And he says, I wonder if Titania be awake. And my wife says, yes. I'm like, Karen, shut the hell up. 3,000 eyes. And he gets this look and he smiles. Then what it was that next came in her eye, and she says, an ass. No, yes. Okay? And then at the end of the play, when they came out to take their bows, they're bowing and everything, and he kind of does this to my wife. I mean, she was like the whole rest of the trip, just walking on clouds. Anyways, we're going to pick up there when we come back. I'll put up, I haven't yet, I'll put up a quiz over the intro to Shakespeare stuff and Acts 1 through 3. Maybe 1 through 2, but plan for 1 through 3. It'll be due either Wednesday or Friday, something like that.